Hello, welcome to my channel. The main rule for the quilting is that there are no rules. You will learn, you will watch others, and you will find the methods and ways of quilting that works for you. And that's the most important thing, because you need to find what works for you to be able to enjoy the process. What you will see is my process of working with different materials and different designs, and I hope some of those tips and tricks will help you in your own journey. Hi everyone, so today finally the time came that I will be able to do some basting, so I thought I will show you how I do mine. So I've stopped using the floor for quite some time now because my back is killing me when I do that on the floor. That's one, and two, it's much convenient to do it on something what doesn't have carpet underneath as well, because then your pins do not go into the layer you don't want to pin it. So this piece of fabric is actually a bed cover. I've cut it on the seams on the side, and it did have a seam at the top, which is great because that means I've got now very wide big piece, very long big piece. That gives you opportunity in many cases to use bedding like that for bigger quilts as well, so just keep in mind. And I bought it in second-hand shop. I think I paid like £3, so for £3 is a lot of fabric, and obviously any cut-offs from it when I will be trimming around and squaring it up later will go to my scrap bucket, so everything will be used. So first of all, this is my kitchen countertop. I've got kind of something like that I've got edges from the both sides where I can use clamps to clamp it. Now from the kitchen side everything is flush, so my drawers are actually open there, so once I open it, I've got that edge to clamp it to. Now if I couldn't do it on my countertop, I would just use my dining table, because table has edges all around, so it doesn't matter what you use, you can use this method as far as there's something you can clamp into. If you're using the countertop like this, just keep in mind that your clamps needs to be wide enough when they open to grab it for you, otherwise it's just, it won't work. Tables are most of the times not so thick, so you may go away with a smaller clamp. I bought this one on Amazon. They were not very expensive, but they're quite useful, so I use those. But there's many other clamps you can buy, like in home stuff shop. So you just have a look if you're interested in that type of basting. So at the time I did iron that quilt cover, but it was in the cupboard for a little bit, and then I took it out and it had some wrinkles. And if you find yourself in that situation, or maybe you iron it the day before or something like that, don't iron it again. I actually found that if you spray, mist it a little bit, literally mist it, or in those spots where it's a little bit wrinkled, and leave it for a couple of minutes, the fabric will relax and it will flatten itself out. You can just literally come with your hand later and just straighten it up the way you want it. So that's the bottom part of the quilt, and I did clamp it at one side already because I don't want it to move for me. Now I will add the battings. The batting I'm using is a low pile fleece. It doesn't have any fluff. I'm buying in the cream color. It's 145 centimeter wide, so it's quite a nice piece. If I need wider, then obviously I will piece it as per video. I also recorded. I will link it in the description. So it comes on the roll. I'll just put it on. That bottom fabric does overhang a little bit here, so there's a good few centimeters on the other side, or a few inches on the other side, so I'm not at the edge here. So when I'm adding that batting, or whatever you're using for your batting, I can now go up to the edge of my surface, and I do leave myself obviously on the other side at least those 2-3 inches on the side. That's my batting. Just smooth it out, that fabric at the bottom, because it was you know, sprayed a little bit with water, is now nice and flat, and also sticks a little bit to the surface, so that helps too because it doesn't move so much. It's not wet, it's literally just misted, so don't want it to be wet. Okay, and now it's time to put the quilt top. Okay, so this is not very big quilt top, so I can just go like this. And again, I did iron it, but it was lying down before I actually got around to do this thing. So it is a little bit wrinkled. So depend on how wrinkled that is. Actually, if it's just a little bit wrinkled, you go away with it, because when you will be squishing it through, you know, under machine, it will get wrinkled anyway. But if it's very, very, very wrinkled, what I'm doing normally, I'm actually ironing it here now on the batting, just to, from the middle, go on that middle seam, because that will be the first I will pin, and then just slide it to the sides, just lightly. That also gives me some time to kind of look at that top, and if I find something I'm not happy with, I don't know, the thread sticking out, or maybe there's a seam which kind of got a little bit apart, I can, one, take the threads out obviously, and two, mark that spot where that seam maybe is not great, and then when I get to the quilting I will make sure I do quilt over it so it doesn't fall apart later. So you can just kind of quickly go through the top as well. And again, at the top I left some space. Obviously if you do it yourself, that, you know, normally you would have like 4 inches all around, but if you do it in yourself, at least 2-3 inches. And I would say the bigger the quilt you're quilting, you probably want to leave up to 4 inches. If it's a small quilt, the shift is not going to be so big, so the gap doesn't have to be so big. Okay. Now what that ironing on the batting does also is, you know, this is quilt made on the muslin with strings, and all of those seams are quite thick, or thicker than you would normally have, because of the strings and because of the muslin. So that kind of pushes those seams into the batting, making it all flatter, funny enough. So the quilting later will be much easier to do as well. Okay, so that's done. So what I can do now, I will clamp it on here, and then I will go on the other side and make sure that those clamps will now also cover the batting I've got there. So at this point of time you can go obviously around and trim it as well to the size you want. So you just cut here, so you have a bit smaller piece to work with. I will leave it for now because it's a small quilt, so I'll be fine with handling it. Okay, so I can now start pinning. I always start from the middle of the quilt and then go outside. And if you're working on smaller surface that it kind of, you cannot put whole of that quilt in one go. If you're, let's say, working on a smaller table, start from the middle of the quilt, so you will have overhang from all around. Do your middle and then reposition your quilt, so you will have again that part that you've done already on closer to yourself, and then you can smudge it out again to the outside as you go along. So I will get my pins. I do use pins for my basting. I did try sprays, and sprays are great, but they are quite expensive, and with the amount of quilting I'm doing for the charities, I just, you know, I wouldn't be able to afford to buy so many. I rather spend money on the things I need to buy to finish those quilts than the spray. Two, I've used the spray for, you know, like a homemade one with alcohol, works great as well. However, you need to have a space to leave the things lie flat at least for 24 hours. I do have a space like this, so I did it and I tested and it was working. I still had to use some pins because in some places it didn't hold so strongly, but it did work. But again, you have to wait, you have to come back, you have to do another layer, wait again, so it's not for everyone, because you may not have that space to do it. You know, if you're doing something smaller like cushions and things like that and you want to baste it that way, that will work great, because you can use, you know, you can put the small piece of fabric with the layers, you know, fairly easily. But for a big quilt, you need to have space for it. So I kind of made a big circle and I came back to the pins. Okay, so apologies if you're hearing noises now, because my kids are playing games in the conservatory. I asked them to leave the kitchen for this tutorial. So what I've learned is that when you pin, the best results are for the shifting, or not to shift the fabric, is one, pin a lot, but also change direction of your pins. So I've got here like a mix of pins. The shorter one, I think they are 28mm, and the longer, which are 35mm. I use both. It doesn't make any difference. However, if you put one pin this way, the one, you know, next to it on top, and literally I shouldn't have a bigger gap than my fist. I will make the pin go the other way around, up. So one goes this way, one goes that way. So then again, when I go to next one, it goes this way again. Now I will do that, you know, to the very top, and then when I'm getting to the next like a column, if this pin went this way, I will go with the next pin up. So they always kind of changing directions, because that means if I'm pulling quilt this way and the pins are opposite directions, the fabric will not shift. If you have all the pins the same way, the fabric can shift, because, you know, the pull will be taking it the same way. So that's how I do that. And like I said, I do pin a lot. You know, it takes a little bit of time, and it probably takes a little bit longer when you're quilting, because you need to remove those pins all the time. However, it just, you know, it looks better and it's easier, and, you know, the fabric at the bottom doesn't have puckers so much, and it just works better for me. So you probably need to try it. If you had puckers before and you're just thinking what went wrong, try to pin more and try the change the direction of the pins as well. So just a little bit of close-up on how it looks, so you can see this one. I hope you can see, actually. This one goes this way, this one goes this way, this way, this way, and then next to that one, they go this way, this way, this way. And I will carry on until it's finished, and then I will just shift the part I've pinned towards outside, towards that side, away from me, and I will work with the bottom part, and again I will go from the middle, smooth it out, and then carry on. The pins I'm using are curved one. You probably can try with the straight ones, but these ones are much easier to operate, because as you're putting them in, they're kind of naturally going out easy on the other side, so you don't have to move the fabric as you're doing that. And also the thing I bought, and actually was quite expensive, I have to say, considering, is that thing to close them up. And you probably could use like a fork or something. People got ideas how to go about it. If you have something you kind of figure out yourself, just leave it in the comments below. It might be useful for somebody else. But I've ordered it made in USA. It actually came from the USA, and it's brilliant for closing the pins. And normally what I do, I will pin all that surface first, and then I will go with this and close them up. It's quicker instead of doing one pin, one close, one pin, one close. Goes quicker that way. But it's quite good tool. It was expensive, but I'm not sorry that I bought it, though I could use something else probably to do it. If you're just using your finger to close the pins, you probably have some cuts later. Well, I had. That's why I invested in this tool. So I do recommend, if you want to buy yourself a little bit of gadget, that's a good one to buy. Okay, so I've trimmed the quilt all around, and I can show you how it looks at the back now. So you can see, because I did kind of misted it, all the wrinkles I had there are gone by now, and I also ironed it through the batting, so all of that made that back to be nice and smooth. And when I finished that first bit, when I moved the quilt to the top to work on the bottom half or whatever the part was left, I smoothed it down, and then I've ironed it again to kind of get the other bit flat. I've pinned it, and now it's all ready to go to the sewing machine. It's not a complicated process, it just takes some time, and don't skimp on the pins. Pin more, you will see the difference, because it does really help for the quilt to not shift. And also make sure that where you go around edges, you pin a little bit more there as well, because that's where the sometimes quilt like to kind of shift a little bit around that, with that fabric, and then you have those puckers coming out on the edges. So just put a little bit more pins there. That will be worth it. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel to support my work. For further inspiration and examples of my work, you can check my Instagram or Facebook page. Happy creating!